Hello, this is Team 4's Habitat Restoration Plan for the property, which is proposed to increase biodiversity in a changing climate. First, we'd like to begin with a table of contents to outline our objectives for this presentation. First, we will be discussing the property location and description. Next, we will discuss the property history. Third, we will discuss the landowner objectives and activities along with our plan. And lastly, we will look at the 50-year outlook for the property.
First, we will begin with property location and description. There are roughly 155 acres of property, all part of the watershed. The property is home to a creek that runs to the east side and floods regularly. The southwest portion is occupied by a stream that only runs in the spring. The retired agricultural land is also home to many different species, such as the Jefferson salamanders, an endangered species that prefers steep, rocky areas and relies on the creek for breeding. You will also find Phragmites australis, also known as European common reed, an invasive species that is known for taking over moist areas. Common bird species found on the property are chimney swifts, a threatened species, and migratory tree swallows, a special concern. Both of these species are in the process of becoming endangered due to habitat loss and human disturbance. The property is also frequently home to monarch butterflies and other endangered species. There are many different tree species found on the retired land as well, such as the sugar maple, silver maple, burnt oak, white pine, eastern white cedar, trembling aspen, and white spruce. The white spruce serves as a windbreak on the property, providing shelter between some of the old fields. There are also 2 red pine plantations, 4.5 by 9 acres, on the property.
The property has had previous agricultural activity conducted on it, which we must consider when creating our restoration plans. Through the growth of soybeans on the north, west, and south parts of the property, the nutrients present in the soil have been depleted, and more recently these fields were frost-seeded with native wildflower cover. The past use of these fields will affect the crops that we plant, as we must focus on restoring the nutritional value of the soil. It will also restrict the crops we will be able to grow, as the crops must be resilient to the poor soil conditions. Alongside the soil conditions, the landowner has noted that due to climate change, soils are becoming drier in the summer, posing issues with future plant growth and production, limit soil biota, and cause easy dust storms and soil erosion. He has also noted increasingly frequent extreme weather events that have begun damaging trees along the edge of the property and windbreak. These events also pose a threat to field crops, as well as to the animals living on the property whose habitats can be damaged or destroyed. Over the next 50 years, it is predicted that alongside the changes the landowner has noted, there will be an overall increase in precipitation, as well as an extended growing season. The increase in precipitation will impact the intermittent flooding of the rivers and increase their severity, impacting the river and the surrounding wetlands ecosystems. The extended growing period, although useful in maximizing crop growth, can interfere with the natural migration patterns of local birds, disturbing the natural flow of the ecosystem.
Landowner objectives and activities. Our main objective is to open the area to the public for wedding photo shoots, and we plan to sell our agricultural products during their respective harvesting periods of the year. Our plans for the property will involve beautification through companion planting of pumpkins, lavender, and beans. We can use the bean stalks to spread across the land and perhaps make an archway for wedding photo shoots. Furthermore, the lavender we are harvesting and our white spruce tree agroforestry will provide an aesthetically pleasing environment for visitors who wish to take advantage of the scenery. Before arriving at this goal, though, we must first restore the soil's health, which has been depleted of nutrients and moisture from previous activities. To restore the soil's nutritional value, we will invest in companion planting with lavender, beans, and pumpkins. We will also invest in agroforestry with white spruce trees to reduce soil erosion. However, we will leave the red pine plantations as they are, as clear-cutting the area can be detrimental to native wildlife. We will manage the area by thinning it when necessary and ensuring that the plantation does not exceed its current area. We also plan to introduce an improved irrigation system to reduce strain on the overflowing river. And lastly, we plan to open the land to visitors who may wish to photograph weddings among the beautiful trees and lavender fields we have established. Naturally, we will have to monitor the visitor soil compaction, which can be remediated by our plants, whose roots push the soil apart and increase pore space. We will prioritize the invasive Phragmites australis through a removal plan to cut at the base just before the end of July to exhaust the root system. After several years, the plant will lose its root system and its ability to grow. We will also focus on the Jefferson salamanders by diverting a few of our irrigation system wells into vernal pools, where the species may thrive. Also, we must prioritize our companion species to ensure that they grow naturally and support each other in the developing soil. Lastly, we will monitor the white spruce we plan to use for agroforestry, ensuring no pests attack the system. If they do, we will advance with integrated pest management plans to maintain its vital portion to our ecosystem. Lastly, our resilience enhancement plan will oversee the previous factors we have listed, such as our sustainable irrigation system, which must divert from manure fertilization.
For our 50-year outlook, we had a lot to take into consideration. We've already discussed in great detail the changes we plan on making to the property, so let's summarize the plans and discuss the short and long-term outlooks that accompany our plans. Maintaining trails on this property will have significant short and long-term effects. Short-term, we will see decompacted soil, and in the long run, these trails will become an attraction to tourists and become a source of income for the owners. The long-term outlook for managing the invasive species Phragmites australis is for them to eventually lack the ability to survive on this property, which will be achieved in accordance with our plans. Opposite to the long-term outlook for invasive species, the goal for these native species is for them to flourish on this land. By planting bushes along the creek and establishing an irrigation system, we can create functional breeding pools to allow for survival and reproduction. Beans, pumpkin, and lavender support each other and allow each to thrive. Each plant serves to benefit the property. Lavender is heat and drought resistant, which can combat climate change over the next 50 years. Pumpkins prevent erosion, which will protect the property in the long run. And beans combat the nitrogen depletion caused by invasive species. Directing the overflow of water from creeks into irrigation systems will allow for long-term healthy moistened soils. As well, the irrigation system will provide long-term support for Jefferson salamander breeding pools. Lastly, incorporating agroforestry into our property plans will allow for long-term shielding of soils from erosion. Now, our plan encompasses a significant amount of work and care. It will require consistent monitoring to ensure the stability of the ecosystems. Our plan to monitor these activities are as follows. Years 1 to 3, we will have our team analyze the progress every month. Years 4 to 5, we will lessen our check-ins to bi-monthly check-ins. Years 6 to 10, if progress looks linear, we will continue monitoring every 3 months. Years 11 to 25, from here we can hope that our progress will be steady and check-ins can continue every 4 months. Years 26 to 50, now that we have collected over 2 decades worth of data from monitoring the land closely, we can assume that checking in on the land could be limited to twice a year. When we take into consideration the extent of our plans to restore the land, there are significant costs associated with them. The initial restoration costs will be relatively high, however, we have accumulated several ways in which we can recover the initial loss of finances. Firstly, let's discuss the costs. Beans to cover 80 acres, $11,505. Pumpkins to cover 80 acres, $1,335. Lavender to cover 80 acres, $9,600. Bushes to cover 20 acres, $15,360. Trees to cover 40 acres, $1,400. Our new irrigation system will cost approximately $11,547, and barn restoration will cost $245,200 to total $295,947. To recover these initial costs, our team has come up with several ways to profit off of the restoration projects. After restoring the property, we will have countless trails for visitors to walk, in the hopes that this property becomes something of a tourist attraction. Additionally, we will have a renovated barn in which we can sell certain items such as drinks and products with the grown lavender and pumpkins. During Halloween, we will market visitors to pick pumpkins on the property. As well, we will harvest our beans and sell them to wholesalers to make a profit off of that. Lastly, due to the beautification of this land, we can market photography for the property. This includes photo shoots for events such as weddings on our property, as well as general private bookings for photos.
Thank you for listening to our presentation. We hope you find our solutions feasible for restoring the land given. We hope you enjoyed.